It began with an invitation, simple, casual, almost innocent. But nothing about it felt ordinary. When she walked into our home, her presence changed everything. I didn't know then how much one evening could shift the foundation of my marriage, my self-worth, and my understanding of boundaries. She was 29, vibrant and self-assured, the kind of woman who seemed to carry a magnetic pull wherever she went. My husband had met her at work, a colleague who had recently moved to the city and was still finding her footing. When he suggested inviting her over for dinner, I didn't hesitate. I wanted to make her feel welcome, to extend the kindness I hoped someone would show me in her position. Little did I know that evening would mark the beginning of something I couldn't have imagined, not even in my worst nightmares. The night began like any other. The table was set, candles flickered, and laughter filled the room as we shared stories over glasses of wine. But beneath the surface, something unspoken simmered. Her laughter lingered too long, her gaze met his too often, and the way she leaned into our conversations felt deliberate. I brushed it off as paranoia, a trick of my overactive mind. But as the evening wore on, the tension grew. Every touch, a hand brushing against his arm, a playful nudge, felt loaded. I caught myself watching them, analyzing every interaction, searching for something I couldn't name. When dinner ended, my husband suggested we move to the living room. We sank into the couch, wine glasses in hand, as she shared stories of her travels, her ambitions, her dreams. She was captivating, not just to him, but to me too. There was an energy about her that drew you in, made you feel like the most important person in the room. And that's when it happened. She looked at me, her eyes steady and piercing. "You have a beautiful home," she said, her voice soft but weighted. "And such a beautiful connection. I've never seen anything like it." Her words were a compliment, but they felt like a challenge, a subtle provocation. I glanced at my husband, who was watching her with an intensity I hadn't seen in years. And in that moment, I felt it. A shift, a crack in the foundation of our carefully built life. The next few weeks were a blur of mixed emotions. She became a regular presence in our lives, joining us for dinners, game nights, and even weekend outings. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but underneath I felt a growing unease. Her relationship with my husband was comfortable, too comfortable. And the way she looked at me, the way she spoke to me, was equally unsettling. It was as if she was testing boundaries, seeing how far she could push before something broke. And then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday evening, and she had come over for what was supposed to be a casual dinner. My husband had picked up her favorite wine, a detail that didn't escape me, and she arrived with a dessert she'd made herself. The atmosphere was lighter than usual, filled with laughter and easy conversation. But as the night wore on, the air grew heavier, charged with an energy I couldn't ignore. When the topic turned to relationships, she leaned forward, her gaze shifting between the two of us. "You two are so lucky," she said, her voice low and intimate. "To have each other, to have this kind of love. It's rare, you know." Her words hung in the air, and I didn't know how to respond. My husband smiled, a hint of pride in his expression, but I felt exposed, as if she could see every flaw, every insecurity I tried to hide. And then, she said it. "Have you ever thought about sharing that connection?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I looked at her, then at my husband, who didn't seem nearly as shocked as I was. His silence spoke volumes, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent shivers down my spine. "I'm just saying that love doesn't have to be confined. Sometimes it's about experiencing something bigger, something deeper." I wanted to laugh it off, to dismiss her words as absurd. But the look in her eyes, the way my husband avoided my gaze, told me this was no joke. This was a proposition, an invitation into uncharted territory. The rest of the night passed in a haze. I went through the motions, nodding and smiling at the right moments, but my mind was elsewhere. I replayed her words, dissected every glance, every touch. By the time she left, I was a bundle of nerves, unsure of what to think or feel. When I confronted my husband, his response was measured, almost rehearsed. "She's not suggesting anything serious," he said. "It's just talk, just an idea. You don't have to overthink it." But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just an idea. It was a test, a challenge to see how far we were willing to go. And the worst part? A small, shameful part of me was curious. Over the next few weeks, the tension between us grew. Every interaction with her felt loaded, every glance a question. My husband and I danced around the topic, neither of us willing to address the elephant in the room, and then one night it all came to a head. She came over again, this time for a movie night. We sat on the couch, the three of us pressed closer than usual. The wine flowed freely, loosening inhibitions and blurring the lines we'd tried so hard to maintain. And when the credits rolled, she turned to me, her eyes searching mine. "I'm sorry if I've made you uncomfortable," she said, her voice sincere. "That was never my intention. I see something in you. In both of you that's so rare. And I guess I got carried away." Her words disarmed me, and for a moment I felt a pang of guilt for doubting her intentions. But then she reached out, her hand brushing against mine, and the air between us crackled with unspoken possibilities. I don't know who made the first move. Maybe it was her, maybe it was me, or maybe it was my husband. But what happened next shattered every boundary we'd ever set, every rule we'd ever followed. In the aftermath, I was left grappling with a whirlwind of emotions: guilt, exhilaration, confusion, and a deep, aching sense of loss. The days that followed were a blur of awkward silences and forced smiles. My husband and I avoided each other, both of us too afraid to confront what we'd done. And when she stopped coming around, her absence was both a relief and a painful reminder of the choices we'd made. In the end, her presence had been a catalyst, forcing us to confront the cracks in our marriage that we'd tried so hard to ignore. But instead of healing them, we'd widened them, creating a chasm too vast to bridge. Looking back, I wonder if things could have been different. If I'd set boundaries sooner, if I'd trusted my instincts instead of succumbing to curiosity. But it's too late for what-ifs. All that's left now is the wreckage of what once was, and the painful lessons learned along the way.